Thanks for being here. Subscribe to Cheating Stories Best, so you don't miss new stories. Traitors strike at the moment when you've done it expected at all, but there is such a thing as karma. It follows on the heels and will inevitably overtake the traitor. Gentlemen, a story about treason and payback for it. When I was growing up in a small American town, life was uncomplicated, and ambition was encouraged in every way. My parents, John and Mary, were hardworking people who believed very much in the power of love and education. They instilled in me strong moral principles and motivated me to pursue my goals. Already as a child, I had a strong desire for knowledge. I excelled in my studies, constantly getting top grades. From my youth, I had high aspirations and spent my free time in a productive way, striving to ensure a bright future for myself. I recall devoting endless amounts of time to reading, as my inquisitive nature pushed me to delve deeper into the realm of knowledge. My parents understood my craving for education and gave me strong support. They often read to me before going to bed, revealing to me the world beyond my own life. As I grew older, my aspirations became clearer. I decided to join the army and contribute to the country. The stories of courage and valor that history is full of captivated me. I long to be part of this great legacy and make a positive impact on the world. The exploits of the military have always inspired me, and I have sought to serve my nation to the best of my ability. To achieve my goal, I knew I had to try harder. The scholarship was my life-saving support, allowing me to continue my education without financial pressure from my parents. I immersed myself in my studies, devoting every spare minute to expanding my knowledge and abilities. The day I received my acceptance letter to a respected military college was my moment of immense victory. My heart overflowed with pride when I realized that my diligence had paid off. Moving toward my goals, I had the opportunity to show my abilities in a competitive environment. Training in a military college was difficult but enjoyable. The hard training stressed me to the limit, both physically and mentally. I learned the importance of discipline, teamwork, and perseverance. I developed strong bonds with my peers, united by a common goal and passion for creating a positive outcome. The military college was a rigorous institution that demanded a lot from me. I had to work hard mentally and physically to prove my worth and get a position that matched my abilities. As I progressed toward my goal of service, I had to make tremendous efforts to excel academically and physically. In due course, I graduated with honors, receiving commendation for my continued dedication and commitment. This moment was a cause for great pride for my parents, who were my faithful assistants throughout my journey. The joyful smiles and tear-filled eyes of my loved ones told me they were proud of my accomplishments. When I entered the military service, I plunged into my duties with great zeal. Each day brought new challenges, but I persevered through them, driven by a deep sense of mission. The camaraderie among my fellow soldiers was very palpable, and we formed a cohesive unit united by a common purpose. In the midst of the chaos and rigors of military life, I remained committed to the defense of our nation's freedom. But in the midst of this difficult environment, I found solace in the company of an extraordinary woman named Sarah. She was a bright and compassionate person who shared my passion for adventure. We met during a break from work, and over time, a deep bond developed between us. As we faced the hardships of military life side by side, our bond grew stronger amidst the chaos. We treasured stolen moments and found warmth in each other's arms. In the toughest of times, we gave each other dependable support and sympathy. As our feelings for each other grew each day, we decided we wanted to spend the rest of our lives together. We had the pleasure of introducing our families to each other, and to our joy, they welcomed us with open arms. The love and approval we received from both sides reinforced our belief that we were destined to be together. Blessed with the support of our family, we embarked on a wonderful journey of marriage. Our wedding day was a joyous celebration of love, unity, and the shared aspirations we had for our future. In the presence of our loved ones, we pledged to support each other at all times, believing that together we could overcome any obstacle. Sarah and I created a life filled with happiness, laughter, and solid support. We rejoiced in each other's successes and found comfort in difficult moments. Our marriage was built on shared ideals and goals, providing a solid foundation for our relationship to thrive. The first few months of our marriage remain in my memory as a time of boundless love, laughter, and endless possibilities. Sarah and I were immersed in our own world of happiness, where each day seemed to be better than the last. I believe that we were the very essence of happiness. As time passed, I noticed subtle changes in Sarah's behavior, small details that didn't make sense. She seemed less interested in getting a job or helping us financially. At first, I didn't pay attention, assuming that she needed time to adjust to our new life together. Marriage is a significant change, and it takes time for both of us to get used to our roles. But as time passed, it became obvious that Sarah was completely dependent on me. I was the sole breadwinner, paid the bills, and managed all of our financial expenses. That kind of responsibility put a lot of pressure on me. Despite this, I was committed to Sarah and was willing to do whatever it took to strengthen our relationship. The day that changed everything came when I received my transfer order from the Army. It was a difficult moment when I realized that I would be separated from Sarah for a long time, but the service called, and I had no choice but to accept. Unfortunately, I couldn't take her with me because there was fighting in the area of deployment. So, I packed my things and prepared to leave. The day of my departure was bittersweet as Sarah stood beside me as we said goodbye, her eyes filled with tears. We vowed to remain faithful and to keep our love alive no matter how far apart we were. I had no idea that this separation would set in motion the events that would change our lives forever. A few weeks after I left, Sarah called me, her voice full of excitement. My heart raced when Sarah said, "Honey, I'm pregnant." A wave of joy swept over me at the thought of becoming a father, holding my baby in my arms, and showering her with affection. Although I was sad to hear the news over the phone and not be there for her, I understood the importance of my job and its demands. Fortunately, luck smiled on us, and shortly after Sarah gave birth, I received the news that I was being transferred back to my home state. The moment was perfect. I longed to see my wife and newborn baby again, and images of their faces flashed in my mind during the long journey home. Finally, the day came when I set foot on the soil of our home state, a mixture of anticipation and fatigue throbbing in my body. Sarah met me at the airport, her face radiant with joy and her eyes sparkling with delight. I hugged her tightly, breathing in the familiar scent I longed for. I arrived home and could no longer suppress my impatience. I begged Sarah to show me our baby. I anticipated seeing a miniature version of ourselves, a stunning combination of our affection and devotion. As soon as she walked into the room with the baby in her arms, my world was turned upside down. The baby was not what I expected, with dark curly hair and skin much darker than mine. I was shocked. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. My wife had given birth to a mixed-race baby. I was filled with raging anger, feeling completely betrayed and cheated. The shock of it all was overwhelming. I was completely perplexed. Questions flashed through my mind, each one more painful than the last. How could Sarah keep this from me? Who was the father of this child? At that moment, I couldn't even think about the fact that the child was my own. Instead, I exploded in a fit of rage, hurling accusations of infidelity and deceit at Sarah. I refused to accept a child who was the physical manifestation of my deepest feelings. Sarah pleaded with me, tears rolling down her cheeks as she tried desperately to make me understand. She swore that she was faithful to me and that the child was undoubtedly mine, but my anger blinded me, and I refused to believe her words. Despite her pleas, I was still sure that something was wrong. My intuition was too strong to ignore. I'd been betrayed, and now I was being cheated. Despite my best efforts, I just couldn't bring myself to accept Sarah's explanation. I took a deep breath and asked her to talk to me. I promised to listen to her without judgment, and I asked her to tell me the truth no matter how hard it was. I braced myself for the worst, knowing that the words she would utter could ruin me completely. As she spoke, I sat in silence, a swirl of emotions swirling in my head. Sarah's words echoed through the air, filled with the weight of betrayal. The truth I demanded was finally revealed, and it shattered the illusion of our once perfect marriage. From the moment I noticed the change in Sarah's behavior, I tried to convince myself that it was just a result of the stress of my business trip. But the voice inside me wouldn't shut up, urging me to fight the doubts that plagued my mind. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I searched desperately for the truth, even if it meant destroying the very essence of our relationship. As Sarah sat in front of me, tears streaming down her face, I found it hard to summon compassion. Her confession pierced my heart, leaving behind only resentment and rage. The child she had given birth to, the innocent one that should have been a symbol of our love, was instead the result of her affair with a stripper. During our conversation, she explained that she could not continue a relationship with a man who was constantly busy with his military duties. She needed a partner who could give her his full attention and reciprocate my love. The distance between us became exhausting for her, and unfortunately, when I was deployed again, she was tempted. She had an extramarital affair with an exotic dancer, resulting in the mixed-race child she now held in her arms. As I tried to make sense of this heartbreaking situation, my mind replayed everything in a circle. The sight of Sarah in the arms of another man overshadowed the memories of our happy moments together. It was a betrayal that hurt deeply, not only in terms of fidelity but also because of trying to nude me, which now overshadowed our lives. I looked into Sarah's pleading eyes, hoping to see in them a glimpse of the woman I had once loved. My wife's eyes reflected only guilt and regret, tears streaming down her face like broken shards of trust. But they were no longer enough to move my heart. The part of me that doubted her fidelity took over, shielding me from the vulnerability of forgiveness. "I can't forgive you," I managed to say, my voice heavy with pain and despair. "What you did is too hard, Sarah." "You have destroyed our love and trust," I said, my voice heavy with emotion. Her sobs grew louder, and she clung desperately to my hand, hoping it would bring some comfort. But I remained firm, unwilling to give comfort. I needed her to understand the gravity of the wound she had inflicted on us. "I understand that you can't forgive me," she whimpered, her voice trailing off between sobs. "But please try to understand. I was lonely, and I made a terrible mistake. I never meant to hurt you." Her words seemed hollow, lacking the remorse I so desperately craved. How could I believe her when the very foundation of our relationship was crumbling under her feet? Memories of her in another man's arms tormented my thoughts, and forgiveness seemed an insurmountable obstacle. "You made a choice, Sarah," I replied, bitterness evident in my voice. "You chose to betray our marriage, to seek comfort in the arms of another man, and now you want me to forgive you? How can I trust you again?" The room fell into an awkward silence as the weight of our broken vows choked the air. Sarah continued to cry, her tears mingling with the ruins of our love. I watched as she struggled to find the words, her voice choked with regret. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "I am aware that I can't undo what I have done. However, I love you and am prepared to make things right. Please don't abandon us." Despite her plea tugging at the remaining love I had for her, my anger and resentment were too strong. "You made a choice, Sarah. I can't go on like this. Our marriage is ruined, irreparably damaged by your actions. Even time cannot heal." I asked her to pack her bags and go to her parents' house or wherever she wanted to live. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she realized the gravity of her mistakes. The room was filled with sadness, and the only sound was her sobs. The love that had once surrounded us seemed a distant memory, only a ghost of what had been between us. As I left Sarah, I wondered if I could ever forgive her. The wounds were too deep, and the pain too sharp. I began the journey of healing that would ultimately decide the fate of our shattered lives. The way forward was hazy, but one thing was clear: I did not want to accept the child as my own. This innocent life brought into existence through deceit and betrayal deserved to know the truth, however painful. With each step, I promised to rebuild my life with the dim light of hope and the courage to accept the undeniable truth. After Sarah packed up her things, her parents came to pick her and her baby up. They looked into my eyes with regret and shame, but I remained undeterred. I could not forgive her for destroying our love. The next day, Sarah called me repeatedly, but I didn't want to hear from her and blocked her everywhere. I wanted to move on with my life and never think of this woman again. 2 weeks later, I returned to duty, where I was sent to another state where military action was taking place. This trip helped me to mend my wounds and forget my grief. 6 months later, I returned home in a better emotional state. I no longer remembered Sarah's betrayal. So often, one day while I was shopping, I met Sarah's mother. When she saw me, she began to cry bitterly and told me that the stripper with whom her daughter had cheated on me did not accept the child and told her never to see him again. Unsure of how to continue living without a livelihood, Sarah became emotionally depressed and stopped taking care of her newborn child. She found solace in illegal drugs, leaving the child's care to her parents. Sarah had not been home for weeks, and it was difficult for her elderly parents to care for the baby. Eventually, they had to put the child in an orphanage. A month later, when Sarah showed up at her parents' house, she didn't even remember her daughter. She was in dirty, ragged clothes with bruises on her arms and under her eyes. Her parents no longer saw this woman as their beautiful and loving daughter. When they offered Sarah a course of therapy, she refused and went to her room. Sarah's parents had gone away that day for an important event, and when they returned in the late evening, they found that neither Sarah nor her mother's jewelry was at home. Sarah had robbed her own parents and absconded. The thawing parents later learned that Sarah had been taken into custody for multiple thefts, where she would have to spend many years of her life. Once she took a step the wrong way, Sarah completely ruined her life and caused great suffering to many people. Thank you for listening to this story. Now here is another exciting story for you to read. In my 35 years, I am happily married to my high school sweetheart, Emma. Together we are the proud parents of two beautiful sons, one 5 years old and the other 3 years old. Over the years, we have shared countless memories and have always connected. But now, I am in a state of shock because I have just witnessed something I never expected to see. Getting into the car, I followed Emma as she headed toward her PE instructor's house after saying goodbye to us. Tears streamed down my face, and I prayed that she wouldn't go for what I was thinking. Despite my doubts, I gave her the okay and assumed her visit was accidental. However, my worst fears were confirmed when I saw them kiss passionately before Emma entered his house. As proof to show Emma her infidelity, I took a picture of them kissing from a distance. After she entered the building, I walked back to my car with shaky steps, hardly believing that my wife was with anyone, let alone intimate with him. As I sat in my car looking at the pictures, a flood of thoughts and emotions overwhelmed me. I was both angry and hurt at the same time, feeling lost and betrayed. I had always trusted Emma and never thought she would do something like this. I was confused and left wondering how this could have happened, how long had she been unfaithful to me, and what did this mean for our future together? Despite my doubts, I took a deep breath and tried to remain calm. I knew I needed to speak with Emma and find out what was really going on before I took any action. I knew I needed time to sort out my thoughts and emotions. It all started about a month ago when Emma returned from a 5-day trip with her friends. While she was taking a shower, her phone rang. I saw that it was one of her gym friends calling, the same one she told me had been on the trip with her. I didn't answer it, but when the phone stopped ringing, I noticed a message on its unlocked screen that took me by surprise. It read, "Where the hell have you been?" I hadn't known what to do for the last 5 days. In a state of confusion, my eyes fell on Emma's luggage. Without thinking, I unzipped her luggage and went through her things. As I rummaged through her things, I came across a stack of contraceptives at the bottom of her luggage. The presence of this proved that Emma was not on a girl's trip. She was with a man who needed the contraceptives for their private encounters, and that man was with her until she returned home. In my desperation to regain our relationship, I looked for any way to make Emma happy. I tried to remind her of the joy we shared together. When she made a remark about my rudeness, I replied, "Maybe I miss you so much," and pretended to sleep through the night even after making love to her. I couldn't find inner peace, so I made a decision to look into the matter. I didn't know how to find out who my wife was having an affair with, why she was betraying her family, and why she didn't care about us and our children. A lot of questions filled my mind, but I decided not to react violently to the situation. I needed to dig deeper and find out the truth. If I was wrong and my doubts were unfounded, I couldn't risk ruining my marriage. But if my suspicions were correct, I couldn't let her continue the relationship. I needed to know the truth before I took any action. As a successful businessman, I often travel out of town for weeks due to work commitments. Despite being away from home for extended periods, I never considered cheating on my wife. I trusted her wholeheartedly and never imagined that she would betray me. My mind is consumed with thoughts of how to fix our broken relationship. It was relatively easy for me to guess that Emma was having an affair because she doesn't work and spends most of her time at home. Her only outings were to the gym or to meet old friends from high school and college, and since we all went to the same school and college, I decided that someone from the gym had to be an affair partner. I started tracking the movements of her car and so far found that she was only in 2 places. There was a place 3 blocks from the gym that caught my attention. Upon investigation, I discovered that it belonged to the owner of the gym, who turned out to be the same man who had instructed my spouse. I recognized his name from her constant chatter about him, and after checking her phone, confirmed it. She kept his number under her name. Shockingly, her love conversations with him were still saved, and I had been monitoring her phone for a month without noticing it. During the last month, I had to cancel business trips more than once, which made it difficult for my spouse to meet her lover. I felt like I was living with a complete stranger because she seemed completely normal. She lovingly communicated with me and took care of the children, but I couldn't help but keep an eye on her when she wasn't home. It's difficult to tell if she's seeing someone else because of her acting skills. I was unaware of how skilled she was at pretending. I found out they planned to meet at his place by checking their chat. In the past, I was naive enough to seek advice from friends, family, or professionals when I was at the gym to coexist with our feelings and find a way out. I was willing to consider couples counseling or therapy to resolve the issues in our relationship and move on. But after seeing her openly hugging him today, I decided to end this type of family. My emotional well-being is my top priority right now, and the way I decided to end the relationship should reflect that. It will certainly be a difficult time for our children, but with the right support and direction, they would become more resilient. When I got home, my thoughts swirled through my head, and anger built up in me as I stumbled across some unexpected images. This prompted me to devise a plan of revenge against the cheaters to shame them. I carefully monitored their actions and gathered a considerable amount of evidence against them. Even if my wife was unfaithful, I would not retaliate in secret. I would publicly ruin her life in ways she never thought possible. I was waiting for the right moment to put my plan into action, and it presented itself when Emma informed me about their 2-year anniversary party at the gym. I asked her if I could join her at the event, but she started looking for excuses. I decided not to insist on it and turned the conversation to another topic. When I arrived at Emma's gym, I introduced myself to the staff as her husband. Some were stunned to learn that she was married, but I also met a few friends who already knew about our family. I explained to them that I was going to surprise Emma during an upcoming birthday party, and so it happened. Since I was absent on the day itself, I planned to have an early birthday party with her friends at her gym. She dressed stunningly and said goodbye to our kids and to me. I followed her to the gym and stealthily went inside, making my way to the technical room where the staff was awaiting my arrival. I warned them ahead of time that I would provide a flash drive with our most treasured memories of our family that would be presented at the event. After watching the video, we planned to surprise Emma. After handing over the flash drive, I joined the party. Emma and her instructor were shocked to see me as he had his arm around her waist, and she was standing very close to him as if they were a couple. When I signaled the technician, the video started playing, and my voice said, "This is for you, Emma." Their pictures flashed on the screen, and everyone, including Emma and her instructor, expressed fear when they saw them. I approached Emma and regretfully told her that she lived in a state where an unfaithful spouse would receive no financial compensation in the event of divorce. Then I turned my attention to her teacher and told him that I had made arrangements to prevent him from getting a job in that state. Emma erupted with anger, her voice trembled, and she burst into tears. But I found comfort in the fact that she was ashamed and begged me not to destroy our marriage for the sake of the children. In the end, I found comfort in this situation.